Tell us about how you got started. What was the problem you were solving? What didn't work? What can we learn from that? Welcome to Guest Space.
Hi, everyone. I want to welcome back Pete Cooper from Coopah and another guest from Coopah, Gareth Nettleton, today. We're going to follow up a bit the chat that I had with Pete a few weeks ago, talking about his amazing story and the business plan that they put together for the Coopah Run Training app. Pete, I'll start with you and kind of let you lead into Gareth, but welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, Matt. It means the first one can't have been that bad.
Yeah, I think you did great. You were in Chicago for the first one. Now you're back at home, right?
So yeah, I was in Chicago in a little hotel room opposite the baseball stadium. Now I'm back in London, so I've got my favourite frame behind me, a picture from Oasis, and then I'm back in America next Monday. So yeah, you've caught me in the UK.
That's great. Speaking of Oasis, my birthday's this coming weekend, and I picked up a vinyl copy of What's Story Morning Glory this weekend. So shout to Oasis.
Very cool. Very cool. I realised that the 2 nights of tickets I've got for them, I'd actually already booked a holiday. So I'm currently trying to get around that one.
Man. Oh, man. That's kind of a bummer. That's like 2 great things overlapping, huh?
I'll take them off your hands, Pete.
There you go. There you go.
What, the holiday?
No, yeah. Where are you going? Where are you going?
Only down to Devon, so I'm just going a night later.
I'll definitely have the Oasis tickets.
There you go. So yeah, Pete, we kind of left off talking about the growth of Coopah and you bringing in some partners and pulling together that minimum viable product and it kind of taken off. Do you want to kind of pick us up from there and then kind of lead into where Gareth came aboard as your CMO?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess we picked up the minimum viable product and realised, hang on a minute, we've got an actual business here. And it was at that point, it was like, we have to survive. This is a case of changing the market. It's not a case of let's spend a load of money and make people think they should use us. Actually, it's how do we survive? And it was really hard. First 6 months, we tried to find loads of ways that we could get people to pay us directly as like businesses. So we went to brands like Expedia and said, look, you need to improve your mental health kind of workplace offering. Why don't you offer a run club? We'll run a run club for you and we'll also give you this run coaching app. And we started to try and get money that way. But what we quickly realized was our B2C side of the business was just growing organically through word of mouth. And then it was really funny. I went for a run with a guy and he was like, have you ever messaged Gareth Nettleton? He's a guy who I've sent loads of LinkedIn requests to that he's never replied, but he's this guy ex-Strava, ex-marketing guru at Strava.
Perfect background.
Exactly. And he was like, I was like, oh, well, he'll probably reply to me. I'm not like going in as a salesperson. I'm going to send him a LinkedIn. And I think I should get it up. Let me get up the exact LinkedIn I sent to Gareth and the date. But I basically was like, to my co-founder, I think we could maybe send this message to Gareth Nettleton, and we got super excited when he replied. But the message was on, here we go. So the message was on November the 7th, 2022. So we were 11 months deep. I sent the classic connection request first. I congratulated him on a job at Playtomic, where he was at the time. And I said, I'm not sure if you've come across Coopah before, but I would love to introduce you to what we are building and get your feedback on it, whilst also seeing if it might be something you would be interested in investing in. So I actually went in looking at it as an angel investor. And then I went in and said, in short, Coopah is building the world's best training app for runners. We automate creating individual training sessions for each user and inspire them to train through digital gamification. We assign one of the world's largest events as an investor and exclusive partner, and our members have over 60% day 30 retention. If you would like to do the deck, I have attached this for you. Thanks again for connecting. He came back within an hour and 37 minutes.
Oh, man, he was on it.
And said, sounds like you have some momentum. Congrats on building Coopah to this stage. Do you have a discount code so I can check out the product fully? And I obviously gave him 1 month free. And that was the start of it. And Gareth then hopped on a call, and I remember clear as anything. I rang Dan, and Dan and I both said the same thing. No one knows the product better than Gareth. And we'd kind of spoken to all these people. We were looking at our first engineers, our first product people, and the stuff Gareth asked us was so early stage. We both said, I don't know how we're going to get this guy in, but we need to get him in. And I remember I was down in the southwest of England on a beach in December, which is not a nice place to be. And we had our first kind of call with Gareth where we said, do you want to come on and be a non-exec on our board? And so that was December 2022, and it's now March 2025. So a long journey, eh, mate?
Yeah, amazing. Hey, lesson there, like be wary what LinkedIn requests you respond to, right?
Right. There's lots of spam on LinkedIn.
Definitely.
No, it was I remember it though. I remember the call. I remember meeting the guys, and probably I presume how you felt a little bit, Matt, when you first met Pete. The infection for the mission of what he wanted to achieve, and actually what they'd already built. I couldn't help but get carried away a little bit, and
I agree.
And it was there, and then I started asking him. I started, delving into my history of like, okay, what matters? What shows the momentum in the product? That there's something here. Is it sticky? Are we getting runners excited? Are we making them run more? All those kind of things. They were the first set of questions I went and asked, and and then had a few great calls with them just to kind of really understand it. And actually, the first thing, I make no apologies, Pete, for asking you for a discount, because you've got to, for me as a marketeer, you've got to feel like this product, there's a threshold that it has reached where I can help you in that sense. And I quickly, even those, like, we're really going back to the early days of the product, the fundamentals of it were still pretty sound. They were sound even then, of like, okay, I can get fitter on this product. It can make me a better runner overall. And I think that maintains to this day. So,
and I think that's how we've always built from day one. And it's like we said in the first pod, it's like, as long as we have a product that people land on and love, and we do what we say we will, which is make them train better and run faster, people will tell people about it. And the product and all the glamorous things, they can come. But I'm sure if we had a product that didn't work or didn't get Gareth fitter, we wouldn't all be on this call now.
Yeah. And Gareth, Pete mentioned how, and I'm of course a bit familiar with your background, but fill us in on that a bit, because we connected through Strava years ago, and that alone is a great sort of prep for what you're doing now.
Yeah, I'll give you the quick potted history. I grew up in agencies, working on various marketing things. I worked on Nike Plus and Nike Training Club back in my agency days. Very long time ago now. But then I joined Strava pretty early on. I joined in 2013 when Strava had more users than Coopah does today, but not that many more. It was pretty early. It was at the stage where Strava was becoming famous as a cycling app. Yeah. We had not got there on the run side at all. It was, if anyone remembers, it was still the two apps. There were separate apps for runners and cyclists and all that kind of stuff. It was a lovely time where Strava was just thinking about how do they internationalize. It's interesting, like, we're talking to you as a US podcast host, Matt, and when I joined, Strava was very US only. I was the first boots on the ground in Europe. That was how we kind of framed it. And I spent a couple of years building a small team here in Europe with somebody focused on the UK and somebody focused on France and somebody focused on Germany. And then in 2016, I took over running the global team. So had a bigger team in San Francisco and then latterly at Denver and Boulder overall, and then ran global marketing through that period and spent 8 years at Strava, top to bottom. And I had an amazing run, loved it, still love the product a bit overall, still I'm an active user every day overall, but just supplement it now with some guidance on what I actually should be doing in my running, rather than running aimlessly and taking photos, which had been my approach to that before then.
And I think that was one of your biggest questions to us, wasn't it, Gareth? You said, what I really want to understand is this a feature or is it a product? And you took a long time, like really digging in, getting mates to try it. And and that's something that always sits with me. Like, and I think anyone listening who wants to build their own product should always question that first, because that's something like I look up to Gareth. The fact that now I sit in a management team with Gareth is something I'm really proud of, because I always take Gareth's advice. I see him as a mentor, even though he sits side by side with me in the business. Like, Gareth brings so much experience, and anyone listening to this, I guarantee you'll take 3 things away from Gareth and a few laughs from me.
Gareth, what is that distinction, the feature versus a product? How do you see that?
I always saw it as, hey, if you think about what Coopah does today, right? The promise is we help people turn up on a start line, fit, feeling confident, really excited to go and run a great race in a basic sense, right? That's, in some ways, that's the product and the brand promise to an extent.
Yeah.
But when I first met Pete and Dan, I was coming to this on the back of a run where at Strava we'd probably said no to building some kind of training plan functionality numerous times over the years, and so I was initially, initially, I guess, I don't know whether they're skeptical or curious of. Is this problem that we're solving big enough to actually make a good business, right? It will solve a problem for runners, but does it have enough scope overall? And therefore, can you get people to pay for it? Because, hey, I'd spent 8 years trying to get people to pay for a subscription to Strava, which is hard, right? And people are in Strava every day, and and there's tens of millions of people on it. Whereas this is even more specific, right? It's a part of running overall, a really, really critical part, but it's a part, and it's subscription only. You're in or you're out in that sense, which I've actually come to love. I think it's a really nice distinction. That, like, are we creating enough value that you decide we are worth paying for overall? Which had been I think lots of actually tech companies wrestle with that, subscription businesses, but really freemium businesses, it can be really hard. And so I just, the first question I asked was, is Coopah a feature or is it a whole product overall? And I just had to get comfortable with that. And Pete and Dan were very good at getting me comfortable with that. But actually the biggest part of it was testing the product myself, understanding how it framed, shaped my running routine. And once I did that, I kind of knew there was something there.
What were the insights you saw that maybe were happening within the broader market of running or globally that the app was speaking to? What was the problem, I guess, so to speak?
Yeah, so I think there's a product and a brand answer to that a little bit. Right. I think the product one is for sure around helping people become better runners is an age-old problem. It's not new, but I don't think anybody was solving it particularly well. Actually, not even solving it. I think anyone was really particularly focused on it, ironically, other than maybe legacy media who were offering PDF training plans that you downloaded and stuck on your fridge and looked at every now and again overall, right? That was the solve up to the kind of advent of run coaching apps.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, if I think of like the initial question you ask yourselves is, can we coach you to the start line of your next race overall in a really good way overall? And I think that's the product promise overall. What I then saw on the brand side of it was coaching people to their next event is only a part of what Coopah is all about. And actually Pete himself, the work he had done before I got anywhere near the building overall around creating community, creating habitual running, creating connection through running. So much of the Coopah brand is built on that. And actually that's in some ways where so much of the power lies as well. Overall, it's why people love the product in some ways. And so I think we could see various things coalescing around connection through running, just people. We have a vision statement at Coopah, and it's to bring the medicine of running to everyone.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the purest encapsulation of when we are at our best. That's what we're doing overall. And I think the trauma the world has been through in the last number of years is significant. And running is one of the ways that lots of people find solace through. It was, that from Pete's story from the last podcast.
Yep, exactly.
And I think so many people found a home on Coopah because of that and the way Pete had shown up. And then it shaped the start of the brand overall.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a hump to get over, especially if you're new to running, isn't there? Where you kind of have to, it has to become a habit. You have to kind of work your way through, any injuries that might pop up to really make it part of your life and part of your lifestyle. And a lot of people it's difficult to sort of get over that hump and make it a part of who you are and your routine. And that's really something the app can help solve for. That I think, Pete, you recognized very early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key thing that I saw and the way I looked at it, which I just think no one else in the running world was looking at it, was that running is so much more than just turning up and running around a track 27 times or turning up and doing a 5K, going and doing a marathon. I was like, I thought I was a weirdo because I was the only person I thought that needed much more accountability than just going out and entering an event. And you'd hear people like, I'm going to enter an event because I need to train. And I was like, but I need more than that. So I set up that run club. And then when I set up the run club, I quickly realized it wasn't just me. And I'm not saying that we're the reason why all these events are selling out now, but I do strongly believe that the rise of run coaching apps has helped people love running. Because I think the amount of times I speak to people who go, I used to just go out and run a 5K and every day I try and run a 5K quicker. Whereas now they're like, you're telling me to run a lot slower and actually take 4 minutes slower than run my 5K. But then I'll go and do a fartlek session and I'll get a PB during a fartlek where I'm doing 2.5 minutes on, 2.5 minutes off, but I'm actually running faster. And I think people look forward to people just start to look forward to running. And I think actually running can be different every single day if you allow it to be. And that's what Coopah shows, is every single run is different. So I think now, what I love seeing is when I see people on my local park and they're doing intervals, I was like, I'm telling you this now, and I'm not just making this up because we went around. I never saw 6 to 10 years ago people doing intervals. I never saw people doing it. Whereas now you see these people running and they are generally doing intervals on the park and they sprint past you and then they stop. And it's like, they might be using the app. And I think that's the big thing, is that we are now living in 2025 where people generally are like, running is so much more for you than just finishing times. And I was saying this to Gareth earlier, I've got an injury at the moment, which is all my mistake. I basically wore the wrong shoes. But I couldn't run yesterday, and it was 9 years yesterday since my mum died. And I was in the worst mood I've ever been in because for 9 years I've ran on my mum's birthday, I've ran on Christmas Day, I've ran on her anniversary of passing away, and I couldn't run. And it was like, blimey, this one thing has been taken away from me. And that shows how much it affects my mental health. You take it for granted so much.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It helps me for sure. If I've got an injury or if I've just got too much going on and I skip a run, it's not a good use of my time. I need to get that. And you're just so much more productive then afterwards, right?
And the worst is when someone tells you to go swimming, you're like, no, you don't get it.
It doesn't work.
To run.
Yeah, I would say I'm just a better human being when I'm running regularly. In everything, I'm definitely a better husband, a better dad.
Oh yeah.
I think I'm probably a better worker. Pete, I'll let you kind of decide on that. But there's just this, it's one of my release valves, right? Yeah. Where you just can let off some steam in your own way. And it just brings me that kind of balance. Actually, it's a big balancer in my life, which I think exercise generally can be that, but running just does it better.
Yeah, there's just something like primal about it that resets your head for sure. Yeah. Pete, you were early on. You said you were just naturally and organically gaining traction with B2C, with consumers and subscriptions within the app. But you also started to work with races, and you had some of them reach out to you, and the London Marathon jumped in with you after the banana viral marketing event, which was so cool. How has that audience that you're speaking to, these different customer bases, how has that evolved? Maybe for Gareth too. And how do you go? Is it difficult to juggle speaking to different audiences in that sense?
I will give you a really brief answer, and I'll let Gareth explain it more. In short, our event partners are our best audience we can speak to, because they're training for an event, so they definitely have a need for the product, and that is why we love growing with partners. And I think I said it in the last one, like, we see partners as a real partner. Like, we know that we can enhance their experience from the minute they enter all the way up to event day, and then we hand it over on event day. We're like, these 8,000 people using Coopah for London Marathon have had the best experience over the last 6 months. We know they're going to go and have the best day. Good luck to the other 42,000 who haven't used Coopah. They're probably going to hate it. But we know that we can really enhance their experience. So when we work with partners, it's always like, we want to enhance your participants' experience. And I'll let Gareth talk more on how we talk to the different personas.
Yeah, I'll add to that a little, Matt. We actually have three audiences. There's the B2C audience, talking to runners, and that whole promise around, hey, we can help you become a better, more disciplined runner, right? But then there's the business audience, like the event owners, but other brands as well, where we think we can add value to them overall. One, because they have a duty of care actually for their runners to turn up feeling okay, and actually having a partner to really go, hey, we can work with you on this. We'll give them a great training plan, and we'll hold their hand through a marathon training block. That kind of stuff it's great for them. They don't have to worry about training overall. So there's that group. But then the original Coopah growth hack, which happened actually when I was an advisor, not when I was an employee, was with charities. And this, I don't know what the percentage of like the major marathons in the US are charity runners, but my guess is it's pretty high, right? London
is a good bet.
Yeah, London is super high. Yeah. And what Pete realized early on was one of the dangers of that a little bit of all these charity runners is often these charity places are really expensive for the charities themselves. Yeah. And the worst thing that can happen is that runner does not make it to the start line for whatever reason. Right. And so what Pete realized was that the reason runners don't make it to the start line is either they don't train very well and injure themselves, or they just don't train overall. And so if you, as the charity, can give them something that gets them to that start line feeling fit, healthy, confident. One, actually, they raise more money. That's been one of the outcomes. But two, it's just a win-win. So one of the original Coopah growth hacks was charities were buying subscriptions offers in bulk and gifting them to their charity fundraisers overall. And and you know what it's like. Any great product, if you can get one person on and they have a good time, they'll tell the next 2 and 3 and 4. Yeah. And so that was where the seeds of Coopah's growth strategy was really sown overall, and you know, charities. In fact, that part of the business continues to grow today. Overall, we'll have a lot. There's a lot of people right now training with Coopah for the London Marathon in April, and it's a part of our business now, which is pretty self-contained, but is absolutely critical, and I think really aligns with the brand as well in terms of we want people to feel like we are that kind of wind at their back as they go through training and race day.
Yeah, that's great. What a win-win across the board to really help boost the charity side of the business, help people run, help people to, once they raise all that money for the charity bib, to be able to run the race and have that experience.
There's a stat as well that Runners who use Coopah that are raising money for charity, they raise 16% more than runners who don't use Coopah, which, again, going back to that product market fit, you're only going to tell someone you're running a marathon and ask them for $100 when you're confident you're going to finish. So what that shows is people are super confident to use Coopah, that they're going to finish early on, so they start raising money earlier, and that is only a win-win for everyone. Like, they're going to enjoy it more, we're enjoying it, and then actually the charity can do way more with the money they raise.
Yeah, that's great. That's the first question you get, right, when you're trying to raise money is, you're running a marathon? Are you crazy? Are you going to finish that? Yeah, it gives you a bit more confidence in your answer, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. What were some of the challenges or the difficulties that you've run into? I think to maybe tee one up, I know, Pete, you early on when you got on the BBC and all you had was this kind of minimum viable product, you probably were caught off guard a little bit at just where the product was in the journey versus like the audience that like just suddenly came in bulk. I mean, maybe that's one early on, but can you guys speak to some of the hurdles you've had to get over? Because that's a huge part of startup life.
I'll let Pete go first and see what he comes up with, and then I'll give you mine.
There you go.
Yeah. So I guess 2022 was about surviving, like I said, and it was about getting people on the app and staying on the app. And we try some pretty random things. Like, I remember we went to the National Running Show, which is over here in the UK, and we did this whole campaign where it was like, come and sign up for £1 for a month. You'll get a free t-shirt and a tote bag. And we were like, this is amazing. Everybody's taking it. But what we quickly realized was everyone just wanted a running shirt and a tote bag for £1. And they were happy to pay £1. And then they'd walk away and unsubscribe. And it was like everything we try and do around a marketing campaign, it didn't matter if we'd reached 10 million people. At the end of the day, unless they were running an event, they didn't need Coopah. And then we got to the point as we gradually grew, and then we raised this large investment round. And very much about what Gareth said about the brand as well, around who we are as a brand and what we care about. We were like, there's so much more we can do. And I always say we're the Patagonia of running. Like, we generally, like Gareth said, our vision statement earlier, like, we want to bring the medicine of running to everyone. And I think what we then realized, Dan and I, was we've kind of extended all we can do, me and Dan. Like, I've kind of nailed the event partners. Sales is naturally what I'm quite good at. And we were like, hang on, how are we going to expand on event partners? We weren't ready to expand internationally. And luckily for us, we had one of the best marketers going, working on the board for us. And we kind of just opened up to him, and he had all these amazing ideas on the board. And we were like, would you be interested in coming and helping us on this? And I'll kind of let Gareth see what other barriers he's had since coming in.
Yeah, I'll kind of keep that thread going a little bit. To Pete's point, when you are a product that answers a very specific question, right? Hey, I'm running the marathon in 2 months' time or 3 months' time. One of the definite challenges, and in fact, one of my things that I was probably initially skeptical about was, but what happens at the end of that, right? What happens when they've run that race? What's next? How are we offering enough value to so that they, rather than kind of putting their feet up, they're actually excited enough to go, actually, I'm going to do something else. I've got the bug. I want to go and sign up for another race, which we know runners do generally, but it's like, how can we do that? And how can we make them see Coopah as a ongoing training aid and training partner for them, not something they drop in and out of overall. And so that was definitely a challenge, and it will remain a challenge just based on actually what it is. But I think what we've tried to do, and we've implemented certain things around we try and get people onto annual subscriptions, and we incentivize them to do that from just a pricing perspective, because the majority of our runners, they run 2 events a year. So actually it does save them money to have an annual subscription as well, even if they take a month off post-marathon, right? And the other thing. But we know in a few months' time, if we've done our job and they are as passionate about running as we are, they'll be signing up for that next race, and then they need a training plan again overall. So just that idea of having a product that has a very specific finish line, frankly, and then going from there. So that was one, and I think we'll battle that forever to an extent overall, and that's fine overall. The second one I would always talk about is, and I don't know whether it's a specific challenge to Coopah or just a specific challenge of business. It's like growth is always hard. It's never easy. Like, I've never ever worked at a business where growth has felt like it comes without you and the team working so hard to make it happen. Overall, we were talking to the team at Coopah earlier today, and I remember back in the day at Strava, we had weeks where we had hundreds of thousands of people sign up to Strava in a week overall, and still it was never quite fast enough, right? And so there's just that, I think, that realization that you will never feel like you have quite enough time. You will never feel like you have quite enough budget. You will never feel like you have quite enough people on your team and doing it all. And so actually the challenge is to go, we understand all those things. So how do we just do the best with what we have and then keep us moving forward? It's so much about growth is just constant forward momentum, right? Yeah. Do something, learn from it, optimize it, try again overall. And for me, that's the way we used to approach growth at Strava. It's the way we absolutely are approaching growth at Coopah now is just keep moving forward and know that it'll never feel easy. If it feels easy, you've just got lucky, is my guess.
Yeah, you got lucky, or you're not paying attention. You're missing something, maybe, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think also, I loved what Gareth said there, and I know you follow me on Instagram, Matt, and it's something I put yesterday about just being in the present, because actually we just presented the numbers to our team, right, on the amount of numbers we got in February, and our growth, we still grew. That is the key thing. We still grew. But I sit back and I look and I would be like, blimey, if this time last year we got that number in 1 month, I'd have been delighted. But it was at that point I was like, we don't have a big enough team. We don't have enough budget. We don't have this. Yeah. And you're still asking your same questions. So it goes back to kind of what I say I'm working on myself with my therapist, is just be more in the present and actually go, there are good things, because if you're only ever going, we're not growing fast enough, although we need to still think that, you're never ever going to get to wherever that is. We're never going to get people running on the moon, I doubt. But we just have to be getting there and being not happy, always wanting more, but also going, it's okay, it's better than we did last year. If it's worse than last year, what's gone wrong? And I think that's something that's really, really key.
Just got to remember to zoom out.
Yeah.
Just got to remember to zoom out sometimes, right? Yeah. We live in these little microcosms of our day to day and a week, where, and actually, if you just take a step back and you go, look at how we did in February 25 to where the business was in Feb 24 and where the business was in Feb 23. Do you know what I mean? And you go, oh my God, the momentum over years is fantastic, but it can feel like you're grinding away day to day.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the second thing is just understanding. I used to listen to podcasts and hear founders, entrepreneurs, and sometimes they make it sound easy, but I think the big thing is you don't actually see everything that happens offline. Your team don't see it. Nobody sees the extra hours, the late night calls you're having. The Sunday yesterday, I think I spoke to 3 investors on a Sunday because I didn't have time to get to them in the week, and it was I'm going to call you on a Sunday. And Gareth said it to the team earlier in one of our calls. He was like, this doesn't happen overnight. We're now building for the next stage of growth. And although all your mates, all my mates in January, are like, Coopah's everywhere, I was like, yeah, that Friday night where I didn't come out because I was too busy working, or that Saturday where I didn't want to be hungover on Monday, that's because I was actually in my bedroom building out some stuff to make this happen. And I think that's the big thing as well, is you do have to, sadly, you have to say no to a lot of stuff to get where you want to get.
Yeah. I just have so much respect for any startup or young brand, because working for myself for 12, 13 years now, I totally understand the behind the scenes hustle that happens and the work that goes in at all hours of the day, and how much of just your being it consumes. And I have so much respect for that. I think it's so cool and engaging. So I love what you guys are doing. Take me back to maybe like speaking of zooming out a bit, where are we along the growth journey of the brand and of the company then at this point? Gareth's kind of come on, you've got some momentum in the UK with events and partners from that aspect. Where are we along the timeline, along the journey, kind of leading up to today?
I'd argue we're barely out of the prologue. Is the way I would actually describe it a little bit. And that's not to be dismissive of anything that's come before. But it's just I just look at it in terms of how big could this thing be if we are lucky, work really hard, and just execute well over the next few years. I think we've got a good product. There's no doubt about that. But really, we're in one market right now. We're starting to make plans and open up opportunities in the US and in a couple of other markets. But international is the next part overall. But I would still say we're super early. But then zooming out, it's ironic. We've kind of tripled the business in the last 6 months overall. And so there's good momentum, but so much more to do overall, which is what we keep saying to the team overall, because that's the thing. So no, I'd still say we're very early overall.
And so it sounds like, go ahead, Pete, if you have something to add.
I would just say I 100% agree with that. It's like we know here one area of growth that works well, and now Gareth's coming in to try and understand other areas of growth, and we might go into 5 different areas and go, these are the only 2 that are going to work, and that's what we're learning in the UK. And then I think with me, I'm kind of like, we always say I'm like the first in, so I'm always like, I go in, I go into the trenches, I start fighting, I try and learn where else we can grow this, and that's what I'm doing right now. Like, I'm in the US, I'm understanding the US market, we're looking at other international strategic markets, and that's because we know our product. Actually, if we want to build a business of this size, we could do that globally just for event partnerships. But like Gareth said, we're still in the prologue, because we don't want to build it just for event partners. We want to be this big through 5 different areas of growth, and that's kind of where we're starting to challenge Gareth on now, is where are those other areas of growth going to be?
I think the way we always look at it, Matt, is we know we're starting to understand certain channels that really work for us. Event partnerships being the first one, and the playbook that Pete rolled out and perfected in the UK over the last 2 years, we're now applying that to other markets overall. And then almost me and my team are working on the back of that and going, right, well, that's the foundations, but then how can we scale other channels as well? And so give you an example, like we've really started to understand how to work with creators in the last 3 months, and get that program up, get it running, bringing on the right talent who we think fits the Coopah brand, super importantly, taking them on journeys where we have a whole suite of creators, training for the London Marathon with us right now, for example. And so that's one channel that we have really high expectations of, and think it can absolutely add to both actually directly, driving people into trial the product, but also just lots of people have just never heard of Coopah, right? And what we do. And so actually it's that first touch is massively important as well. And what you've learned, what you understand is certain channels work at different times overall, and you understand what each channel does for you. And that's where we've been thinking about it. And we're starting to, we actually have growth coming from a number of different channels now. It's actually quite diversified, almost too diversified. Like there's a whole kind of growth marketers playbook that says master a channel first and then open the next one and go and learn that. And so we're trying to place a few bets on X, Y, and Z, and then go and get really good at them.
So there's a lot of your experience, I'm sure, Gareth, in being familiar with different channels, and which everyone uses that, right? Like, we're going to pull levers, right? Which levers to pull at different times. But there's also balancing that with learnings from Pete, kind of exploring different things. Just changing times and which levers might be more effective based on like larger macro factors. And it's it's kind of an art, isn't it?
It is not. And I would say every company's different as well. You look at like Strava and Coopah, and you go, wow, there's two running apps, both after kind of like an active person.
Yeah.
Surely like the playbook's the same. And you're like, no, the playbook's actually quite different overall. And because, my time at Strava was between 2013 and 2021, like the world has really changed between 21 and 24 and 25. You just like, especially the media world, oh my word, it moves so fast. And so you can't just go, I'll just run this playbook, because your playbook's out of date almost as soon as you think you've written.
That's right.
Overall. So you've got to be nimble, and you've got to surround someone like me. I have to surround myself with the right kind of now talent, if that makes sense. And I think that's what we're really blessed with at Coopah. We have some tremendously talented individuals who are very of the moment. Overall, we have this lady called Esme, who's our head of brand, and she is so finger on the pulse of this is what's great on social. She's a creator herself, all that kind of stuff. And that's so valuable.
Yeah. So we're moving into the US market. Pete is like recon on the front lines at the moment. So he uses some analogies. What are the differences you're finding? Where kind of in that learning process then right now, right? What are we kind of discovering that is working, not working? And what are we thinking up to the moment here?
So there's two big things that I would say I first realized is not having anyone in the ground on the US is a big thing. So we've literally this week making our first US hire, and that again is I say to the team like all the time, like move fast, break things. Like it's not always going to work, but you learn from the mistakes. So that's the first thing. Is like it's so important we get someone in the ground in the US, which we're about to get. And then I think the second thing, which is really interesting, is a lot of events and charities have these in-person run clubs, these in-person run coaching, and it's educating them that we're not competing with them. Like what we really, really care about is getting those 80% of participants who can't turn up to your run club on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday to still be active and enjoy that experience and have a virtual experience. And that's kind of what a lot of the time I'm talking with events on now is saying, look, let's say you've got 50,000 runners in your event weekend. Of that, if there's 500 that turn up to your run club, that's amazing. They probably would only get out the door if they turned up to that run club. They wouldn't get out the door even if they had Coopah. But of that 49,500, what are you doing to give them that epic experience and get them out the door? Because maybe they're, a mum of three, maybe they're a hospital worker. They can't actually turn up at the times you put it on. So Coopah can step in and go, look, we've got this super flexible, adaptable app. If this week you can only run 3 times, you just tell the app you can only run 3 times and it'll update. And I think that's the biggest barrier we're trying to get over now, is being like, we can grow your coaching revenue and your overall revenue, and we want to do it together. And actually, I really, really love your run club, because that's why Coopah started. Coopah was a run club, and the difference was I saw that there was 95% of people who needed more training than once a week, and I wanted to fix that problem. So let's work together, because you're probably not going to create another business because you already have a really successful business. You can't go and run 2 businesses. So let's work together.
Yeah, I love that.
I'd add on a few things, Matt. I've seen the difference between US and UK, and obviously my prior role, I kind of sat over the US as well. And so the first thing I would say is don't underestimate 95% of the things. That 95% of like runners are similar no matter where they are. If they talk French, Japanese, Brazilian, Portuguese, actually what motivates a runner, what is valuable to a runner is the same, right? And then there's like 5%, which is these little idiosyncrasies which are unique to market overall, and you have to understand those. And it's almost impossible to do that if you're not native to that market overall. And so it's the 5% you have to try and unlock. If you've got product market fit and growth going in one market, you can be confident the fundamentals are there. You've just got to work out how do we just tweak it. So a few things I point to, like I always have this saying that if you win in London, you'll win the UK, right? If you win in Paris, you will win in France overall. that doesn't account for the US. You got to win in New York. You got to win in LA. You got to win in San Francisco. You got to win in like Denver, Boulder. There's just these, because of the vast scale of the country. You've just got to be in different places as much. And maybe not physically, but you can't just go, we're just going to focus on this one city and that will create as momentum to take the country. It just doesn't work overall. And so we're really thoughtful on that. Like we think about our geographic spread, like where do we go overall? And so that's one. And I think certain cities matter more than others in the US. When you apply that same lens, again, you've got to win the coast and those kind of things. So that's one. On the plus side, I would always say US runners are more willing to pay than UK runners. Interesting. For sure. Like, I think there is maybe it's just a kind of maturity to the tech marketplace, to subscriptions overall. We used to see it at Strava. I am almost certain we will see the same thing at Coopah. There is just a higher willingness to pay for, you still got to deliver the value, but if you're delivering value and people can see that, it should actually, you would expect slightly higher conversion rates over to paid. Interesting. Overall. And then the third one I point to, which I don't know if this is going to have a difference yet, but the US has like so many different climates. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, if you can be icebound in the north, but there's some great race happening in Florida in the middle of winter, right? And so, whereas the UK, we're a pretty small little place. If it's winter here, it's winter everywhere, right? So, I think that actually, once we really start to put some roots down in the US, just the diversity of the calendar. Yes, you still have a kind of spring season and a fall season, right? But I think there is just more. It's a bit broader than probably what we get in the UK right now, and that creates opportunities for us to have races at different times of the year, and therefore different training block cycles. If that makes sense. So I'm excited for that, and I think again it's just another way where we can diversify our growth. Where suddenly, I don't know, maybe it's the like spring season could be fantastic in the US because there's all these kind of early summer races. That's right, for example. So we shall see. But I think that's a slightly different one where just the size of the country creates opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see the presence that you'll start to have here, because the app is just such an enabler for the sport across other brands, events, all of it. And anything that raises the tide, so to speak, and lifts all the boats is something I'm all for. So, any way I can help support your growth, let me know. I think we're gonna give away another year's subscription here to Coopah, another pair of shoes. So check in the show notes and comment to be entered to win that. But I'll be respectful of both of your time. I think we got to wrap up here. But is there anything else that either you would like to add?
I would just say if you work for an event or a running brand and you're listening to this, like, you can be part of something seriously special here. Like, we really, really believe that we change people's lives. I will happily get on a call with you and show you some of our reviews and some personal messages that I get from people. And I would just love to hear from you and see if we can partner with your event, or can we partner with your brand and do some really cool stuff in your city. So yeah, please feel free to reach out on me on pete@coopah.com.
I think Pete said it perfectly. Yeah, we're looking to come and make a splash in the US, and we did that with great partners in the early days in the UK, and I think we'd love to do the same over there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you guys both so much. We will be in touch, and like I said, let me know how I can support you.
Appreciate it. Great chat, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.